Hi there everyone, my name is Alex and welcome to my review of Alan Wake for the Xbox 360. Alan Wake is a psychological action thriller made by Finnish studio Remedy back in 2010 for the Xbox 360 and a couple years later for the PC, and many years later packaged in a bundle with their new game Quantum Break for the Xbox One as a download. So back in the day, a friend of mine actually pinched me about this game. He knew I liked games like Alone in the Dark, and then he said, "Alex, I got this new game, Alan Wake. It's a psychological action thriller. A guy runs around in a dark forest and so on." And then he borrowed the game to me, and I took it home for a few days. And when I got to the third episode, because the game is split up in episodes like a television series, then I was hooked, and so I gave the game back to him and said, "Thank you so much for the recommendation. Here you have your game back, because I've already ordered my own copy on Amazon, so I'll be getting that in a couple of days." And then that's the one I have here, by the way. Then I got it, played it, was fully immersed. It was unlike anything I had ever played before. It just spoke to me in a way no other game had before. I guess I just have a thing for games with a dark and psychological theme, games that question the fabric of reality and stuff like that. And that's exactly what this game is about.
Stephen King once wrote that nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They're antithetical to the poetry of fear. In a horror story, the victim keeps asking why, but there can be no explanation, and there shouldn't be one. The unanswered mystery is what stays with us the longest, and is what we'll remember in the end. My name is Alan Wake. I'm a writer. I've always had a vivid imagination, but this dream unsettled me. It was wild and dark and weird, even by my standards. So yes, it began with a dream.
The story is essentially about this writer called Alan Wake, not me, my T-shirt, who has suffered from writer's block for a couple of years, and so him and his wife Alice go on a vacation to Bright Falls. They rent a cabin in Cauldron Lake, where shit goes down. It turns out that there's some kind of ancient darkness has been imprisoned in the lake. But when it senses that this writer guy Alan arrives, then it sees its chance to escape, and kidnaps Alan's wife Alice. And because Alan will do anything to get her back, it sees its chance to manipulate Alan, promising him that he'll get his wife back if he cooperates. So what this dark entity wants is essentially to make Alan empowered, because the lake has the power to make what you write become reality. And so it tricks Alan into writing a horror story that can give it power and spread its maliciousness across the country. I don't really know what kind of scale this dark power had intended to go, but anyway. And so at some point Alan escapes, and then it's a race against time for him to get to the bottom of all this. He has to figure out what this whole dark entity is about, and how he can get his wife back. At some point, a kidnapper approaches him and says, I have your wife, and if you want her back, you better gather all the manuscript pages and do as I say."
I had to talk to someone. I told Barry everything. He thought I was certifiable, but when he heard about the manuscript, I had him. The fact that I'd written something, even if I couldn't remember it, was enough for him. He smelled money, and he believed that Alice had been kidnapped. Anything beyond that was another story. I had a midnight appointment with the kidnapper in a place called Lover's Peak, somewhere in Elderwood National Park. The plan was to rent a cabin.
I don't like it, Al. I don't like any of it. It's not good. In fact, it's the absolute opposite of good.
Mr. Wake! Barry, you found him!
Hi, Rose.
Oh, wow, I was just thinking about you, too.
Great.
I was just bringing Rusty some coffee. He's on the balcony, looking after Nets. Poor thing. I really need to go. Great to see you again, Mr. Wake. Later!
Who's Max?
What an airhead.
Jeez, Mr. Takes a swing at everybody. This is not her fault. She's a very nice girl and, more importantly, a fan. She even has a fan site dedicated to you. And she was very helpful when I was looking for you. Seriously, Al, what you were saying in the car, just listen to yourself. What, you shot a guy and his body just disappeared? When was the last time you slept? What, are you high? Have you been drinking?
No! Look, Barry, I'm missing a week, and someone's got Alice, and
Do
everything's
you
just...
understand what it sounds like when you say stuff like that? Don't get me wrong, it's a good story, could be a bestseller. But when you start confusing fiction with reality, you're buying yourself a ticket to the funny farm.
Wait here.
So the gameplay. You control Alan, of course, running around in the forests at night, everywhere from ghost towns to mining caves, camping sites, all the kinds of locations you would find in the American outskirts. And there you gather manuscript pages that are narrated by Alan, and sometimes he will also narrate to himself about what is happening at the moment.
I knew I should have gone to the cops. This wasn't the smartest thing I'd ever done, but I was still angry with Barry for trying to talk me out of it. These people had called me right in the sheriff's station. The cops wouldn't scare them, and they had Alice.
You run around as Alan in various locations in the mountains, forests, generally out the outskirts of Northern America, where the team traveled in order to get pictures and inspiration for the game, where you collect manuscript pages that tell the story, deepen the lore, essentially foreshadow what is going to happen in the game.
The air in the visitor center was heavy with an awful smell, as if some rotten drowned thing had crawled up from its grave. Rusty kept coughing blood. My eyes were drawn to the twisted shape of his broken leg. The attack had been vicious. Max whined in his cage. Rusty's eyes were wild with fear and terror. He gasped. "Mr. Wake, it happened just the way it was on that page."
On your way you also fight people that are overtaken by the darkness. They are called Taken, And so what you have to do is you have a flashlight and a gun, and you then have to shine your light on them to burn away the darkness that protects them, and then kill them with the gun, and that's about it. And so you just run from point A to B, fight what shows up, and collect these pages. So there aren't really any kinds of puzzles, and the gameplay doesn't really go deeper than that. It's just a trek from point A to point B, and take care of potential enemies. I guess you could say that makes the game kinda linear and repetitive. I mean, when you only fight the occasional enemy and apart from that just run down this one set pathway guided by the narrative. But some of us like that kind of game. Okay, maybe there could have been more puzzles, but there are still secrets that secret collectibles that encourage you to go off the beaten path and explore.
Lover's Peak was at the far end of the nature trail.
But other than that, I mean, what you see is what you get. A story-driven psychological horror game that doesn't appeal to everyone.
Mr. Wake? Oh, hell. It happened just the way it was on that page. I found it came true. It knew. So dark. It'll come back for me. You must... The lights. In the office. I have the key. Okay, Rusty. Hang on. I'll be right back.
The combat system is pretty basic. You have your handgun, your shotgun / rifle, and your flare gun that is essentially like the BFG in Doom. It is your oh shit, I'm surrounded gun. I mean, the flare gun will demolish anything in its vicinity. Normally, like I said, you shine your flashlight to burn away the darkness that protects your enemies, and then you shoot at them to be off with them completely. The flare gun says fuck that shit and just emits this explosion of light that kills anything in its vicinity. Your handgun is just that. It's your handgun. Throughout the game, you will stumble upon upgrades to your shotgun. So it's not like in games like the new Tomb Raider where you have you get a shotgun or a handgun, and then throughout the game you will accumulate experience points that you can use to physically upgrade this weapon. No, in Alan Wake you find replacement weapons. Like you have your shotgun, and then later you maybe find a rifle or a hunting rifle or what will you, and then you are given the choice to swap that weapon for the other. Thankfully though, one type of weapon shares the same ammunition. Same goes with the flashlight. It can also be swapped when you occasionally find a stronger version of it. The soundtrack is very ambient, especially when Taken show up. If you're running around in the forest, for example, the mist will thicken, and you can hear the wind in the trees, like the tension heightens, and the ambient music really gives you the feeling that shit is about to go down. And when shit is not going down, you just get ambient sounds like bird noises and crickets and whatnot. So it really gives you the feeling of being outdoors in pure nature. Finnish rock band Poets of the Fall has also been in over the soundtrack, contributing with some lyric songs, because they are good friends with Sam Lake, who not only wrote the game but is also a key member of Remedy, and so they composed some really good headbanging rock songs that are very well integrated in the gameplay, and also adds to telling the story. It'll make sense if you play the game, and many of these songs have even become fan favorites. Songs like War. The funny thing is that there are these two characters in the game, the Anderson brothers, who in their youth had this band called Old Gods of Asgard, and Old Gods of Asgard are then Poets of the Fall's in-game alter ego. So, like, inside the game, they pretend to be these guys. They also have an Easter egg appearance in one of the later chapters of the game, like the real Poets of the Fall, along with Sam Lake himself. So look out for that.
Do me a favor, Sonny. I could really use a tune right now. Coconut, number 6 in the jukebox. I'd do it myself, but both of my legs have gone to sleep. Bad circulation. Yeah.
Are you serious? Coconut again? You disgust me. Call yourself a rocker. Unbelievable. Ha!
You put the lime in the coconut, drink them both up.
Just because we're brothers, don't think I won't murder you in your
It does
sleep.
that. Get stuck. Yeah, you need to give it a good solid whack. Yes, that's my favorite tune. Coconut.
Shut your mouth, you demented has-been. If I had my hammer, I'd shut it for you. Shit.
Also in I'm not going into depth about that, but The standalone sequel-ish game Alan Wake's American Nightmare, released a couple years later, also came with a brand new single from Poets of the Fall called Balance Slays the Demon, which is also a really good song. Like, when I discovered that song within the game world, I listened to that shit for days, and still listen to all their songs to this day. I think they write really good music. So I definitely recommend that. The camera makes sure to highlight potential things you have to pay extra attention to.
I was too late. Someone had destroyed the circuit breaker. There was no way to get the lights back on.
I just need hunting licenses.
The graphics are kinda a product of their time. Keep in mind this is a game from 2010, so while games were beginning to get more photorealistic, and don't get me wrong, this is a beautiful game, especially during the daytime sequences, which there are some of, and you are generally safe in the daytime, but it's a very beautiful game during the day, and during the night the graphics really get the atmosphere right. But facially you can kind of see that yeah, facial capture weren't quite there yet.
Shh, baby, just another nightmare. Everything's fine. You dozed off.
Right. Anything more than dozed off would be news for everyone.
Cheer up, handsome. We're here.
The game has its flaws. It's not perfect by any means, not by means of graphics, not in terms of hit detection and that kind of stuff, but it and it may even be, it may also be a niche game for a very small audience, but I guess I'm just that small audience. This game, the story, how it really gets deep and serious and really fucks with Alan's mind, becoming more and more psychological, questioning his sanity, whether this is reality or not, because at one point in the game, when you get far into it, even he can't tell the difference between reality and fiction anymore.
What the hell was that? I saw it from the window. I saw something.
Forget about it, Barry. It's just me going crazy.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. You're not crazy. I wish you were crazy, but you're not crazy. Ow, be careful.
Stay in the cabin. Don't open the door for anyone. I mean it.
And then ultimately he has to face off against this dark power. I guess this is just this is one of those games that are one of a kind. They don't really come along all that often, and I really liked it. And then I have this this T-shirt that I made myself because while they did have an official store up and running when the game was released, you could get all kinds of merchandise, T-shirts, whatnot. For some reason, I never picked one up. So years later, when I got the opportunity, I made one myself. I was like, it's not official merchandise, but hey, it's something. It's a T-shirt and it says Alan Wake. What more do you want? I also want to add that shortly after the game released, they announced two pieces of DLC, two kind of extra chapters that further expanded the story. I won't give too much spoiler, especially since the DLC takes place after the end of the main game. But essentially these two stories, I guess they take place inside of Alan's head, inside his psyche, and then you really get a feel for just how batshit crazy his mind is. Like, you get the full force of it.
After the completion of any difficult undertaking, there are mixed emotions. Accomplishment and relief. Sadness, depression. For a while, everything was about the work. Like an illness, it consumed you, changed you. You locked yourself away from the world to do it, and now you need to recover. Learn to live without it. Find a way to crack open the door and let the light back in. I knew this place. It was familiar, but wrong somehow.
Welcome to the night.
Everything had a surreal, dreamlike quality.
I would talk about what I want to see in a potential sequel, but I don't really think that's gonna happen anytime soon.
The purchase of mark. License. Obey.
I really do wish for a sequel, an Alan Wake 2, but since the game's mediocre launch and only later gaining a cult following, it sadly doesn't seem to be in the cards or in Microsoft's interest. It is sadly them calling the shot, while Sam Lake and Remedy would love to make a sequel. They just don't have it in the cards. I guess you could say that that there's always a chance. I mean, Beyond Good and Evil 2 has finally been announced at E3 last year, several years after the first game, and I think everyone had given up hope that that such a sequel would ever come. So there's always hope, I guess, and I keep my hope alive, though I'm not holding my breath. Overall, I'm just happy and grateful that this gem of a game even exists in the first place. At the time of this review, the game has sadly been taken down from Steam due to some music license running out. There was a sale before the game went down where the game was up for super cheap, but now it is unavailable unless you have already bought it. Then you can of course re-download it, but other than that, it's unavailable. so your only way to play it is to get a physical copy for Xbox 360 or PC. I don't know if you have a download code that came with Quantum Break on Xbox One, if you can still use it to download the game, because I don't have either. So that was my review of Alan Wake. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!